I've always enjoyed a good controversial animated comedy series. Way back before every cable channel and streaming service had their own adult animated shows, all we had was The Simpsons, which had parents in an uproar because Bart was considered quite the rude dude.
Eat my shorts.
All right, I'll eat your shorts!
Yeah, eat my shorts!
This was before the internet, so it was a more innocent time. But the 90s saw the launch of MTV's Liquid Television, South Park, and a few years later, Cartoon Network's Adult Swim. From there, the adult comedy door was kicked wide open. And with live-action production currently up in the air, we've now seen entire networks shift their programming to include more adult animated comedies. In the final days of the hellish year we called 2020, I took my mind off the state of the world with a great adult cartoon series that made me wish I'd hopped on the bandwagon years ago. So let's get into it. When I was a kid, my favorite show was Ren and Stimpy. Wedged into a stellar block of classic 1990s Nickelodeon, that animated series was my jam, with a unique art style I'd never seen and jokes that felt like they'd probably get you sent to the principal's office if you repeated them in school. If you're too young to remember this revolutionary series, there are two great documentaries that will help give you some context. The Orange Years and Happy Happy Joy Joy, which I wrote about for Trashwire, and I'll link that below. Ren and Stimpy was like a gateway drug. It was a kids' animated show that felt more like an adult animated show in disguise, and it served to usher a whole generation from the Nickelodeon of our youth to the MTV of our teen years.
Hey, you said you'd show me the MTV website. Would that just be MTV.com?
And MTV picked up right where Ren and Stimpy left off with Beavis and Butt-Head. In the evolutionary chain of adult cartoons, Ren and Stimpy is the fish that grew legs and crawled out of the water, and Beavis and Butt-Head is the one that first stood upright. Mike Judge's animation style and voiceover work is basically iconic at this point, and Beavis and Butt-Head is where that all began. Aside from the usual animated adventures of these two teenage dumbasses, the real highlight was their commentary on popular and sometimes obscure music videos of the day.
Hey, Butthead, how are you thinking I'm?
Shut up, Beavis.
Oh my god.
You may be about to see the coolest video you have ever seen in your life.
Oh.
They were obsessed with fire, chicks, and occasionally teepee for their bungholes.
I am Cornholio. I need TV for my bunghole.
If you thought parents hated Bart Simpson's sassy attitude and Stimpy's magic nose goblins, Beavis and Butt-Head practically made their heads explode, and it was almost instantly blamed for all of society's ills.
A harmless parody of coming of age in the 90s or the worst possible role models? Well, it depends on who you talk to.
The show was moved to a later time slot, and some of the more controversial content was scrubbed from reruns, but all that controversy just seemed to make it more popular. If your parents hated it, it had to be cool. And that brings me to a show that parents have hated for more than 23 years. In the 90s, Comedy Central was a tiny network that mostly aired stand-up specials. They didn't really offer much in terms of animation beyond Dr. Katz and sometimes reruns of The Critic. But in 1997, all that changed when Trey Parker and Matt Stone invited us all to come on down to South Park. This show was immediately my favorite thing. In fact, this is in the background of my Zoom calls at work. Growing up in Boulder, Colorado, the cable provider didn't carry Comedy Central, so people used to record the show on VHS and have screenings at the Boulder Theater in hopes that everyone would go home and call up TCI Cable to demand that they add the channel. It was in that theater where I first met Stan, Kyle, Cartman, and Kenny, and there was just no going back to a network show like The Simpsons after that. Sure, South Park has had its ups and downs over the years, and some of the early episodes may not have aged particularly well, but when every episode is still written, directed, and starring the same people after 23 years, you're allowed a few missteps every now and then. The late 90s saw a boom of animated comedies, from King of the Hill, Futurama, Family Guy, and later in 2001, the launch of Adult Swim on Cartoon Network. Adult Swim shows were weird and more experimental than we'd seen before. Unlike MTV's animation showcase Liquid Television, Adult Swim wasn't bound to a tiny half-hour block, so they could dive deeper into their weirdness and humor. One of the first Adult Swim shows I really loved was Aqua Teen Hunger Force. The opening theme song, the animation, the improvisational feel of the dialogue, Moonanites constantly flipping the bird. I loved that show because it felt like it was just doing its own thing, and if you didn't like it, cool. They were gonna keep making stuff that made them laugh. And if we're talking Adult Swim, we're talking Rick and Morty. Annoying fans and high IQ copy pastas aside, this is a really great show. The writing is so tight while still leaving room for that improvisational feel, the animation uses tons of great colors and Easter eggs, and the jokes are so solid. Rick and Morty exploded into pop culture in a way we hadn't seen since the late 90s, and it could potentially be an animated show like South Park that lasts for decades to come.
Rick and Morty forever and forever 100 years. Rick and Morty some things.
And that brings me to Big Mouth on Netflix. I don't know why I was hesitant to check this show out. Maybe the fact that it wasn't on a provider with a serious animated history like Comedy Central, Adult Swim, or even Fox made me question the quality. Maybe I thought it would be more like Family Guy than Rick and Morty, so I passed on it initially, but shout out to Trixie Mattel and Katya's Netflix promo series on YouTube for showing some clips of the most recent season and convincing me to give it a try.
Yes, queen, go off, girl boss, pussy hat slay. Hey, Natalie. Hey, Jesse.
A few minutes into the first episode, I was already kicking myself for not watching it sooner. The main story is about best friends Nick and Andrew navigating puberty with the help of hormone monsters Maury and Connie. It stars Nick Kroll and John Mulaney as our two teens, with Kroll and Maya Rudolph voicing the hormone monsters. Oh, and it also features a cast list that includes major comedy heavy hitters like Jordan Peele, Andrew Rannells, Fred Armisen, Jason Mantzoukas, and many, many more. Like its animated forefathers, Big Mouth is also controversial and edgy, though I'd hesitate to use that word because it conjures images of 14-year-old Reddit contrarians. Big Mouth is edgy in kind of the opposite way. It doesn't draw its humor from punching down, and it actually aims to talk about subject matter like puberty, awkward first sexual encounters, and navigating middle school popularity in a way that's both cartoonishly extreme and totally relatable. That's not to say that there aren't gross-out moments and wacky animated stuff like you'd see in a Rick and Morty or a South Park. Typically the storylines are a little more basic, relatable growing-up experiences with really funny dialogue and characters that take them far beyond just a, hey, remember middle school kind of humor. This is, of course, from the great writing, but also from stellar performances from the voice cast. Jason Mantzoukas in particular is easily one of my favorite parts of the show. The dude has a perfect voice for animation, and I love what he brings to his character.
So, this is our percussion room, this is the armory, and this is the door we never open.
And we never open it because something quite terrible is behind it, or?
Andrew, it's the door we never open! Okay.
Through the magic of Netflix binge watching, I blazed through the first 4 seasons over the holiday break, and now I'm dying for more. How the hell did I sleep on this show? So if you're like me and you're looking for a new adult animated comedy to get into, definitely don't miss Big Mouth on Netflix. So what was the first adult animated series you watched, and what's your favorite one right now? Let me know in the comments below. I love animation, and I'm always looking to check out something great, so I'd love to hear your recommendations. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next one.